Welcome back to my channel. A few weeks ago, I was thumbing through Time magazine, which I have subscribed to for a number of years, mainly because I like to read the nasty things that they say about us, especially in the letters to the editor. There are so many letters against us, b'li ayin hara. Anyhow, I was going through Time magazine, and all of a sudden, I get to the back page, and I see a face that looks a little bit familiar. Wait a minute, I better take my glasses. A little bit familiar, and sure enough, it says Herman Wouk, the best-selling author of The Caine Mutiny and The Winds of War, marks his 100th year on Earth with a new memoir, Sailor and Fiddler. Wow, Herman Wouk. What history. Wow, unbelievable. 100 years old, and he's still kicking. And I'm 78, 79, and I don't kick that much. Anyhow, I want to talk about Herman Wouk. He also wrote Marjorie Morningstar, many novels, very famous person. How do I get to Herman Wouk? Herman Wouk wrote a book which was basically a manual on Yahadut for Goyim and for Jews who don't know too much. And the name of the book was This Is My God, Ze Keli V'Anvehu. It came out in many editions. At one point it was given to the Tzava, to the Israeli army. And I was very impressed with the book. Now, why was I so impressed with the book? Because in the book, in the beginning of the book, the thank yous, Herman Wouk thanks Rabbi Moshe Tendler for helping him with the information for that book. I hear Rabbi Moshe Tendler, and wow, this opens everything up. Herman Wouk and Rabbi Moshe Tendler. Rabbi Moshe Tendler was my first Rebbe in high school, at Yeshiva University High School. It was my first year in the high school, and it was his first year as a Rebbe. And he was a kochav, he was a star. Why was he a star? Because he was very good looking. He was the son-in-law of Moshe Feinstein. And he was I don't know if then he was a professor of biology, but he was a really great guy. And all of a sudden he decides to become a Rosh Yeshiva in TA, Talmudical Academy on 185th Street in Amsterdam Avenue. And his student, his new student, is a guy named Raphael Weinberg, who had gone to Yeshiva Soloveitchik 2 blocks away, and who had many friends who were looking in the window of the classroom to see how he's doing. Tendler sits down, takes a look, and he says, your name is Weinberg? Are you related to Rabbi Irving Weinberg from Yeshiva Soloveitchik? Aha, now I understand why so many people are looking in the window to see what's going on. Anyhow, we became very friendly. More friendly than a Talmid with his Rebbe. But I was a Talmid and he was a Rebbe. Anyhow, why is all this important to us? Because as the years went by and our relationship grew, one year Rabbi Tendler says to me, listen, have you ever heard of Herman Wouk? And I said, of course. Everyone heard of Herman Wouk. Well, did you know that Herman Wouk and I are good friends? I said, I read what was written about this is my God, and I know that you had something to do with it. Rabbi Tendler, no, what's up? What do you want? He says, I'll tell you what I want. Herman Wouk has a house on Fire Island. Do you know where Fire Island is? I said, I've heard of it. I said, isn't it true that to get to Fire Island you have to go by boat because there's no bridge? At that time there was no bridge. He says, yeah. I said, isn't Fire Island a place where you have a lot of very, very, very wealthy, crazy people? He said, what do you mean by crazy people? I said, the health food type, they're multimillionaires, but they look like they're coming out of a concentration camp because they only eat this and they only eat that. I said, yeah, I know all this. Why are you telling me? He says, I'll tell you why. Because Herman Wouk asked me to come to Fire Island for the Yamim Noraim, for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and to be in the Beit Knesset that he is preparing. And I thought it would be a good idea if you also came. I said, really? Why? He says, I'll tell you why. Because I, Reb Moshe Tendler, am going to daven Shacharis. Herman Wouk is going to daven Musaf. And Raphael Weinberg is going to give the drasha. You want to come? I said, sure, I want to come. Okay. That's how I got to Fire Island. I remember the days before Rosh Hashanah, how Herman Wouk's wife invited us to for all kinds of exotic foods. It's with potatoes and this and that and this and that and the other thing. She doesn't even know that the name is knishes, but that's what it was. And we had a very, very good time. And we reached the point where we are now in the Beit Knesset. And in the Beit Knesset, Rav Tendler davens Shacharis very nicely. And later on, Wouk daven Musaf, pretty good. And in the middle, Weinberg speaks. And I gave a drasha. I don't even remember what the drasha was. But I do remember that when I finished, Herman Wouk walks over to me and he says, it was very good, but I got news for you, my friend. The story you told was taken from Tolstoy. I said, yo. He says, but that's okay. Anyhow, that's how I first got to Fire Island, and that's how I first got to know Herman Wouk. And I never forgot him, and I wouldn't have believed that this man is now 100 years old and he's still writing and he's featured in Time magazine. But that's the case. And I think, so you're going to ask me, by the way, you said Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. What happened on Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur, we weren't there. Why weren't you there on Yom Kippur? Because there were storm warnings and nobody wanted to get stuck on Fire Island on Yom Kippur. So this small story about Herman Wouk and Rabbi Tendler, again, the catalyst is Time magazine. So I suggest people that you start reading Time because there's a lot of good stuff there and there's a lot of bad stuff there.